Welcome to enrichment for this chapter. You're going to be watching videos on blended schools, submitting a quick check after the videos to show me that you've mastered the concepts, and then you'll have an extension activity as well as enrichment homework for each lesson. Copy down your target, start your warm-up. Make sure you're completing your notes, guys. You are being trusted to do the work that's appropriate for your level. Pause the video here, copy down your target, complete your warm-up, and then plus play or resume. Okay, now that you've completed the warm-up and you have your target written, let's check what you did for your warm-up. Your work should look something like this. Make sure you're showing all of your work. We want to undo adding 1.8, so you subtract it from both sides, and then you're left with t equals 2.4. I like to circle my answers. It makes them stand out a little bit more. And then afterwards, show a check step. Your check step should look something like this. In the end of a check step, you should have a number equals that same number. This shows me that you're done, shows me that it works, okay? On the next equation, to undo the fraction 5/6, we multiply by the reciprocals, which is 6/5. Multiplying by the reciprocal, if I want to do this work over here, negative 20 times 6/5. Remember that negative 20 is over 1, so we can reduce the 20 and the 5, leaving me with negative 4 times 6. That's going to make your work easier than doing negative 120 divided by 5, but you'll get the same answer. So you get W equals negative 24. Again, show me your check step. In the end, negative 20 equals negative 20, so it works. We're going to solve one-step equations all together, all in one day, okay? We're going to do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division today because I think that you can handle it. I think you're ready for it. Make sure you're showing all your notes. Make sure you pause the video and do what I ask as we're going through. Before you do any pauses, I want you to copy down these definitions. So an equation is a mathematical statement that says that two expressions are equal. A solution to the equation then is going to be any value of the variable that makes the equation true. So make sure you write those down on your notes. I left you a nice big spot there on how do you solve equations, and I have a picture to go with it. Answer these two questions underneath your definitions on your notes, and then press play when you're done. Okay? You've now done the definitions. Hopefully you've answered these questions. What does the picture above have to do with equations? Hopefully you're telling me something like keep your balance, or whatever you do to one side you must do the other, because if you notice these are scales, and when I add blocks, red blocks on the left, I also add them on the right, or if I take them off, I do that on both sides. So always keep your balance in equations, okay? And how do you solve equations? Maybe you told me steps, maybe you told me ideas, but hopefully you're saying something about isolating the variable, using inverse operations. I like to visualize the inverse operations as undoing PEMDAS. You use PEMDAS when you're simplifying, you just follow through. Okay, that's when there's not an equation, that's when there's just numbers, they're expressions. But when you're solving, now you start at the other end. You start undoing addition and subtraction first. I think this is a really nice graphic that you could draw down on your paper, just as a little reminder. As we go through, also remember the words that are going to help you translate English to math. So if I say sum, what operation are you thinking? If I say quotient, what operation are you thinking? If I say less than, the product, double, all of these things would help you to write math into an equation, or write these English words into an equation. Okay, so make sure you feel comfortable with them. Well, these are the next two problems we're going to do. Take a look. There's fractions, there's negatives, there's mixed fractions. Try them. Pause the video, try A and B on your own, and then press play for me to go through the work. Okay, let's see how you did. On A, I'm going to add 3/10 to both sides because I have a negative 3/10. I don't want to make this 0, so I need the opposite sign or the opposite inverse, or sorry, the opposite operation, whichever way you want to think about it. So I'm going to be left with negative p. Check. Do you have that negative sign there? Because that's really important. equal to add fractions, I need a common denominator. Hey, don't do this work in your head. We want to see it. You have to show every step of the way. So I'm going to get a common denominator by making the denominators 20. That makes my second fraction 6/20ths, and my first fraction negative 15/20ths. Now I'm adding those two, so I get a negative 9/20ths. I hope you did not stop here because p is not isolated. We still have this negative sign. So how do I get rid of that negative? I can multiply by negative 1. Negative p is like a negative 1p. And if I want to get rid of the negative, I need to bring another one into the equation so that they can cancel. So multiply both sides of the equation by negative 1, and you're left with p equals 9/20ths. Let's look at this next one here then. 2/3 equals n over 6½ Both sides have fractions, okay? In order to get n by itself, right now n is being divided by 6½ so I would multiply by 6½ Do that to both sides. So I would have 6½ times 2/3. And that's going to be equal to n. Well, in order to multiply fractions, it's best if you have them in improper form, especially when you have a mixed number. So 13½ times 2/3 equals n. Notice how I'm keeping my work lined up. Everything is lined up, all the steps are shown. I'm working down the page, not just across the page. So then over here I can cancel my 2's. Remember guys, you can always cross simplify. It's okay if you didn't. If you didn't do that, you would get 26/6, and then you would have to reduce that. But if you remember that they can cancel here, now you just have 13/3 and you don't have to reduce at the end, which is nice, because sometimes we forget. Last step, what do you have to do on both of these problems? You have to show your check step. So I have my check step right here. Make sure you have a check step. Make sure they're ending in a number equals that same number. That's how you know it's right. If you have any questions, please pause the video, look over my work, see if you can find your mistake. If you still have questions, ask the teacher. On to the back then, we have these word problems. When you receive a loan to make a purchase, you often make a down payment in cash. The amount of the loan is the purchase cost minus the down payment. CJ has made a down payment of $1,500 on a used car. He receives a loan of $2,600. Write and solve an equation to find the cost of the car. So what words in this problem are related mathematically? What math words do you see? Hopefully you caught this minus. And anytime I see minus, I also look in there for the word is. The amount of the loan is. Because is means equals, and minus means minus. So you already have an equation. I would start with just letters. The loan is the purchase cost minus the down payment. Then fill in everything you know. Well, we have CJ having a down payment of $1,500, so that's D. And, sorry, this is a typo, he received a loan of $2,600, so that's L. Plug in that information, and now you have a variable left. When you have an equation, guys, you need to define what your variable is. So right here, tell me what P stands for, or X, or C, or whatever you used. I'm going to say P is the purchase cost. Make sure you have that written down. You have to define your variable with an equation when you write one. Now to solve this, hopefully you added to both sides. You got 4,100, and then you have a quick check step. Very important though for your teacher to see the equation you came up with and the variable defined, okay? Very, very important, so do both of those. Circle your answers. Make sure there's units on your answers when you have a word problem as well. So defined variable, equation, circled answers with units. Those are all important things. Don't forget the last step, which is the check step. Example 3 then. Jill babysits regularly for 4 families over the summer on weekends. She starts to save for college when she enters high school. She decides to put 1/4 of her money, of all of her babysitting money, into her college fund. Circle some key information there. By high school graduation, Jill has added $285 to her fund. Write and solve an equation to find how much money Jill earned. Pause and do this for me. Make sure you define your variable. Make sure you show me all the steps. Check step is the final step. Okay, now that you've solved, the 1/4 of her babysitting money is her college fund. So 1/4 of the money is the college fund. Well, we know something in there. We know that Jill has added $285 to her fund. So the college fund can be replaced with $285, which means the only variable we have left is M in my case. Maybe it's X in yours. So over here, tell me what M stands for. Mine is going to be babysitting money. Whatever variable you use, it should still be the same babysitting money for this problem. Now to solve this equation, we can multiply by 4 on both sides, and we're left with M is equal to 1,140. Last step then, show me a check step. 1/4 of 1,140. Does that equal 285? You can reduce these if you want, or you can do the long division. 4 goes into 11 twice, remainder 3. 4 goes into 34, 8. Remainder 2. 4 goes into 20 5 times, so yes, 285 does equal 285. Circle your answer there. All right, last problem then, example 4. Sometimes I'm not asking you to solve just for the variable. So if you look at this problem, I give you an equation involving n. But then it says find the value of 6n. So I don't really care what n is. I'm going to need to know it to get the last part. But what you need to circle is the value of 6n. How are you going to solve this equation? Whatever you do to one side, do to the other. To cancel out the 2, we'll multiply by 2. N is equal then to negative 22. Don't circle that because I want to know the value of 6n. So then 6n is going to be equal to 6 times that negative 22. Show your teacher that work. This is important, guys. This is the work that you have. So it's substituted in. 6 times negative 22. 6 times 2 is 12. Carry the 1. 6 times 2 is 12 plus the 1 is 13. And a positive times a negative is a negative. So this is your answer to the question. If you wanted, you could show a check step here to plug in for the n to double check that. All right, you're on to the quick check from here.